Welcome to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, where we don't take from insurance companies. Here are your hosts, Mr. Jordan Comstock and Mr. Ben Tuine. This podcast is sponsored by BoomCloud Dental Membership Software, www.boomcloudapps.com, and Veritas Dental Resources, www.veritasdentalresources.com. Enjoy the show.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast. I am your host today, Jordan Comstock. With me, my good buddy, Ben Tuine. What's up, dog?
What's up, Jordan? Happy summer.
Happy summer. Oh my gosh. It's crazy that it's already summer. We're in the middle of 2022. Years keep going faster the older I get. Do you feel that?
Yeah, you know, the days and the weeks and the months, it all just flies by so fast.
I felt like it was just Monday.
Yeah.
Now it's Friday.
I can't believe 2 years ago, pandemic started and the whole world turned upside down. And it seems like it just went by so fast.
Yeah,
You know?
that definitely sped things up, but I'm pumped to be here, pumped to be doing this podcast more frequently with you. It's even though we're neighbors, it's good to see your face this week.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Rather than looking at my ugly face in the morning, in the mirror. That's why I try not to brush my teeth, in the mornings. I don't have to look at myself.
Well, there's been some good news. We know that Johnny Depp won, right? I know that's some big news.
Oh man. It's I've been following it loosely, but more so I've just been interested in the outcome because this whole idea when people give you a bad review, right? They make a comment about you on Facebook, social media to a large audience, or they jump on Google or Yelp and they make a fictitious review, or they just make crap up, right?
Yeah.
So this Depp Heard trial is very interested in the outcome because, Amber Heard, she wrote that op-ed and millions of people read it. That was basically giving Johnny Depp a one-star review to the world, right?
Sure.
Well,
when it affected him big time.
Oh, big time. So we, in the Google world and the Amazon world, as it pertains to reviews, people get sued for making false reviews.
Sure.
But now that this pop culture case closed in favor of having bad reviews taken down, or at least, this whole defamation issue, that's good news for business owners because we all get bad reviews from time to time, and they're so hard to get down because you have to, you're guilty and proven innocent.
Yeah.
And you have to prove that
the crazy thing is, Ben, just in reviews or just people talking bad about, a practice or whatever. Look, number one, I know growing up, my mother always said, here's a lesson from my mom. You can't please everybody, and that's normal. That's normal. You can't make everybody happy. That's extremely normal, whether in personal life or in business. But also the reality is a lot of the times if people do have a bad experience, which we'll talk a little bit more about this, that a lot of the times if that patient's on a PPO plan in the practice, PPOs, definitely affect the patient experience, and then your office gets blamed, which is really interesting to me. It doesn't make sense. But a lot of the times what happens if they have a bad experience is what I call emotional distortion. I don't know if you've read the Crucial Conversations, Ben. Fantastic book in terms of talking to people. It's a wonderful book. We read it here with our leadership team. We require our leadership team to read it because what happens if somebody has a bad experience or whatever, a lot of the times what is called emotional distortion kicks in, and they tell themselves a story and make it worse than what it really is. And I see that often, on like Google reviews and things like that, is people tell themselves stories and make it worse than what it really was. So I think that's also a wonderful book to combat those types of situations, whether it's a Google review or maybe an internal member of your team that had some type of bad experience with you or another team member that you have to resolve. So that's my 2 cents on it.
And we're going to dive into that because, the topic of this episode, why PPOs are bad partners. What you often see among the PPO patients is that when insurance companies make a mistake or coverage isn't as good as the patient thought, the patients somehow think this is your fault as the
Yeah.
treatment planner, right? Or the
Yeah.
insurance
Or office
coordinator or the office
manager.
manager. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Or
blaming
dentist.
you for their crap insurance plan, right? And then they hop online like these sons of, they just
Yeah.
keyboard warriors, they just rip you to shreds.
Yeah, totally.
So
And last night, Ben, I was talking at a little ADOM study group who there's a ton of Ben Tuine fans over there.
I'm surprised people know me up there.
Whatever, dude, you're a legend. I was talking to a handful of office managers last night, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me is they feel like that, yes, PPOs are bad partners because they do a list of things, and we'll go through the list of things here, but we'll start out with the fact that they jeopardize the patient experience, and maybe even confuse the patient experience is another good word for it. Because exactly what you just said, Ben, a patient signs up for a crap PPO plan and then blames the office for, the issues that the PPO plan is giving to that patient. And often these office managers are feeling like they are like the first tier support of the insurance companies, and they don't get compensated for it. In fact, the practice owner has to pay for it, which is why I think one of the first reasons why I think they're bad partners, because they are making you become their first tier customer support team or service team or cleanup team. The office managers have to clean up the mess that the PPOs are creating in the practice. And I think that's one reason why they're a bad partner.
Yeah, huge. This all started with assignment of benefit. So when physicians started to accept assignment on behalf of the patient,
interesting,
which basically means that as a doctor's office, I take on the responsibility to find out what's covered and what's not covered on behalf of the patient, right? So therefore, when I submit the claim, that reimbursement is coming back to me as the doctor, right? Or my office, not to the patient.
Yeah.
But the patient is the one that's insured, right? You'd think that the responsibility would be for the patient to work with their insurance plan to figure out what's covered and what's not, right?
I have a question. Is that like a legal strategy that the insurance companies implemented?
Oh, it is. It's not necessarily a legal strategy, but it's a ploy to do exactly what you just mentioned, to get the office managers or the dentists and the doctors to pay for that administrative process.
Oh, interesting.
When I did research on this, I mean, this whole assignment of benefit thing started in medicine years,
sure,
long time ago. And I was reading The Art of War, and that made perfect sense. One of the strategies, which in this case is, what when you don't have, like you're in a profession where the profession is not trusted, and insurance plans or insurance in general, there's a lot of distrust with insurance, right?
Totally.
And getting the trusted professionals to be your what did you call it? First line of support, right?
Yeah. Tier 1 support. Yeah.
Tier 1 support. In that way, when the public views insurance, they're viewing you now as an extension of the insurance arm, right? And it's totally a business strategy to help the insurance company save money on admin by putting that first level of support on the dental practices, but also a buffer, because when patients complain about their coverage and insurance, they don't call their insurance.
No,
they call the dental
very
office.
Rarely. Yeah, it's very rare. I mean, some of my employees here at Boom Cloud came from insurance companies, right? Because they were sick of the crap that the insurance companies did internally with their employees. They came here, understanding what we do, and it's a night and day difference for them in terms of how we help practices versus how insurance companies don't as much, right? They try to avoid that, right? Which is kind of very interesting to me. So yeah, that's the first reason why I think PPOs are bad partners. I was trying to make it more positive, but they're bad partners.
Yeah. The sad thing is that, insurance was around way before dental insurance was created.
Sure.
And MetLife, according to the dates, MetLife was the first organization to create a dental plan, but Delta Dental is actually
Interesting.
what the more everybody
Made it
knows that,
popular.
yeah, Delta Dental's, depending on who you talk to, everybody, a lot of people say, well, Delta started dental insurance. Whether it was MetLife or Delta doesn't really matter. But the thing about it is that, you know, California Dental Association, Oregon Dental Association, Washington Dental Association, they created their version of Delta Dental that got us on this whole path. And it was designed
Interesting.
to be created in a way where the doctors would have influence on creating a benefit plan to help the public, right? Increase utilization, increase people's visits into dental practices. And boy, has it turned around in a big way against dental
Yeah, because it used to
offices.
be a different scenario, right? In the early
Huge.
days.
And there's so many examples. There's one here in particular in Utah where a group of dentists created they created a dental plan, and same thing happened. It just turned into another insurance plan. And the very doctors that were part of that group are the first to complain about it. It's like, well, you created that.
Man.
It's like, let's stop creating insurance plans. Let's do something else, right?
Well, yeah, and the truth is, insurance companies they have good, let's say, business models, right? I mean, one reason, if you look at you know, in every state and every city, the insurance companies have the largest buildings, right? And that's because they have a great revenue model. They're essentially selling paper contracts.
Yeah.
And facilitating the relationship between it's a marketplace, right? Where you're facilitating patients and dentists. They're selling paper is what I usually say. It's a really good, I mean, selling paper, that's very there's a lot of profit margins there, you know, with the subscriptions that they charge and everything. That's another reason why they do have a great business model. I do think it's fascinating to study that business model, but at the same time, there's flaws in the business model where it causes confusion between practices and patients. You know, that's why I, you know, have always loved what we do at BoomCloud is dental membership plans, because it kind of eliminates that confusion between the practice and the patient. But that I definitely think, you know, the reason why they're not very good partners is because they jeopardize patient experience, and they use business strategies or legal strategies to avoid their costs. It sounds like
Big time.
Ooh, gross.
It's just interesting. It's interesting, that dynamic where patient gets a call from their insurance plan and the insurance company challenges the doctor's diagnosis, or they completely tell the patient that this is not the right thing for you to get, right? This doctor is doing this, this, and that. And it happens, you know, and you got to ask yourself, you know, as a member of a dental practice, whether you're a doctor, assistant hygienist, is that illegal, or is that even allowed for an insurance company to re-diagnose the patient, right? And say that you shouldn't be receiving this treatment, or you're being over-treated, you know, whatever it may be. And many practices don't know the answer to that. The answer, of course, is no. But it goes back to a licensing function, right? Insurance companies do this to pit distrust between the patient and the doctor, right? And they do that by design. To me, that's why they exist, is to find ways to make the doctor community look bad, so there's less treatment being paid on. But you know, the patients always go to the doctors and complain about, you know, once they get that seed of doubt planted, almost always that relationship is just completely destroyed. And unfortunately, that patient, when they go to a new doctor, there's already distrust, you know, in terms of the clinical community, right?
Sure.
Which is sad. It's very sad to see.
It's unfortunate. So the next thing, Ben, that why I think, you know, PPOs are bad partners is because essentially they kill profit margins. They reduce profit margins. I say kill because that's an intense word, and I'm an intense dude. I'm teasing. But they kill profit margins, right? You know, and I just don't think that is a very fun business strategy. If I were a practice owner, be like, okay, this is what I can charge for my services that are high quality, needed services, you know. And now I've got to discount it by 35-40%. Because I signed a dotted line somewhere, you know, with this PPO contract.
It begs the question, is it really worth 40%? because that's what you're paying, right? In terms of money that you're not making. And the answer 100% of the time is no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
We just did an assessment for a client in Philly. They dropped Delta Dental a few years, well, 2.5 years ago, right before the pandemic started. And the numbers clearly indicate, you know, they're retaining most of the patients. They're collecting in full at the time of treatment, which was very scary for them.
Sure.
But their profit margins are crazy higher than what they were before, even though they're seeing less Delta patients in general.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And now they're in the process of dropping United Concordia because they're like, well, we can lose patients, but that doesn't equate to losing profitability, right? Because you're just simply earning more on less patients. And over time, you regain those patients in the form of new patients, right? You have more, you have some time to strategize and build marketing programs, within the practice to help replace patients that have left. But yeah, I'm a firm believer right now that nobody needs to participate with insurance, but I get it that getting there to that out of network status is hard, right? It's not easy. Something that needs to be carefully considered.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, we can do a whole new episode just talking about, those strategies, which I think would be fun.
Oh yeah.
Because I know you and I, we speak a lot on this topic, and I think it's really a really needed topic in this day and age, especially with insurance companies pushing down, on the practice in regards to reducing more and discounting and inflation, on the rise. I think it's definitely a strategy that every practice should be thinking about now in 2022.
Yeah.
The next reason why we think insurance companies are bad partners is because they hurt your cash flow, which is like sacred to me. Cash flow is so sacred. I ran my dad's dental lab for years, and in those early days, it was during the 2008 recession. Cash flow was a challenge for us, and I saw what that did to a company, and it's not fun and it's not pretty. And I don't even want to see my worst enemy, maybe my worst enemy, but I would never want to see my worst enemy go through that, because it is such a challenge for a business to go through cash flow issues. And last night I was talking to these office managers at the ADOM chapter, and it seems like a lot of their cash flow is delayed or even denied, right? Because of the claims being denied. That's future cash being delayed or denied.
Yep.
What have you seen out there, Ben, in regards to PPOs hurting the practice's cash flow?
Oh yeah, delay tactics all around. A lot of those delay tactics are in the form of an illegitimate denial, or requesting records that were already submitted during the initial claim submission.
And then you got to appeal things, correct?
Yeah.
I feel like I was talking last night. I'm like, it feels like you're working with like insurance companies plus the IRS.
Yeah.
I got to appeal stuff.
What's crazy to me, again, going back to this whole assignment of benefit, you chose to take on the risk of the patient's reimbursement, right?
Interesting.
And
when they sign that dotted line for a PPO contract, that's what they're signing. A lot of people don't know that, probably.
No, they don't. They accept that risk, which to me should be eliminated. The patients need treatment, and the risk for insurance should be on the patient and the patient's employer. And this is the beauty about being out of network, is that whenever claims are denied, you don't ever have to deal with that stuff, right? You're collecting in full from patients at the time of treatment. And when the patients have that responsibility to appeal their claim, what I advise our clients to tell the patient is that if you get a denial, it is important to take that to your HR department immediately so they can help you appeal it. When the HR departments appeal those denied claims, they get reversed lightning fast.
Really?
Well, in situations where it was a clean claim, to where there was no question about the treatment that was provided to the patient. That's the difference that we see, is that when the employer, who is essentially, the insurance companies are a client of that employer, but when the boss complains, it changes that whole dynamic quickly.
Sure.
Which also begs the question, why aren't we doing this now? When we're in network, and I know most practices are in network, whenever there's a denied claim, why don't we get the HR departments involved now, saying, hey, look, your insurance plan is blocking your employee from getting a benefit that they are entitled
interesting.
to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
because
that's
I
interesting.
imagine, you know, when I talk to brokers, I've talked to thousands of brokers that sell dental insurance, and they love Delta. They love Blue Cross. They love United Concourse. Like, our clients never hear any complaints. I'm like, holy smokes, what world are you living in?
A world where they're not dealing with the complaints.
Yeah. And when I outlined the complaints and said, do you know how many delay tactics go on and situations where patients don't get their benefits?
Yeah,
you probably never hear about it because the dental offices are the ones writing it off.
Yeah, totally. And we talk about delay tactics and really how it can affect cash flow, but also most importantly in a practice, it affects the patient's care.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of it's a backwards way of thinking, you know, oh, patient last type thing. This patient needs X, Y, and Z, but we're going to delay it. We're going to deny it. We're going to make it complicated, you know, for this patient to get what they need. It just doesn't seem like that's the right thing to do for the patient, in my opinion. You know, and maybe there's some scenarios that may be the right thing to do, but I would imagine that majority of scenarios out there, Ben, that the patient actually needs that dental care, and that they're being denied from the people they're paying to get certain discounts, right? It doesn't make sense to me. It's a silly little business model, in my opinion.
Profitable one, very profitable
one for the people, for the insurance companies. Well, another thing too that you may make them not a fit to be a partner for the practice is, we kind of touched on this last episode, is that their motivation is their shareholders, not the patients or the practices. It's their shareholders and investors. You know, that we could easily add that to the list. That does definitely make them not a fit to be a good partner for the practice.
Yeah, and I admit I have life insurance policies through Guardian.
Sure.
I looked at it the other day and said, man, I'm making good money on this one.
Yeah, because didn't we talk about that last episode, that the like 401ks and like ETFs that may have insurance company stocks inside of it?
It's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword.
I love to hate them, you know, but at the same time, you know, the business model of it is it helps for people that are trying to make an investment. Yeah.
Yeah. The stock's good. Yeah. Yeah, well, absolutely. No, and there's obviously that side of it. There's definitely a place for PPOs. It's not like I hate them. Well, I do hate them, but I do think, you know, there's obviously a place for them in the market, and I don't ever see them going away 100%. You know, that's not realistic, but minimizing and reducing your dependence on PPOs in the practice is definitely a reality that I see every day here at Boom Cloud with all of our customers. And I'm sure, yeah, with your clients, Ben, I know you see that probably in more detail than what I see.
It's a big time trend. And the ones that make that move, you know, all these problems that we're talking about in terms of insurance companies being a bad partner, you know, it almost all goes away when that whole dynamic shifts. And the dynamic, going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, is assignment of benefit. You need to get rid of that. The only way you can do that is be out of contract. And I get it. Maybe we can talk about this on another episode, but it takes time to get there, right? To build that mindset. And the beauty about all that, in terms of not accepting assignment of benefit, you get paid immediately when the patients come in. There's no in between you and the insurance plan, right? The patient's dealing with their insurance plan directly. And there are no discounts, you know? Yeah. I mean, discounts you can choose on your own, but most practices, they just file the claim, or at least prepare the claim with their own fees and collect from the patient based upon that, right?
Yeah.
So huge, that's your big aspirin right there, is to go out of network.
Yeah, totally. You know, the last thing I have here on our list, Ben, but I think we touched on it, is, you know, the insurance companies expect the office managers to clean up their mess and for the practices to pay for that. You know, and we've touched on that a little bit, but that is definitely what's happening out there. And I think it's just not cool. If I had a partner that did all these things to my business, if they're like, let's just, for a scenario here, let's say somebody comes to me like, hey, Jordan, I want to partner up with you. I'm like, cool. this is my business plan for you, Jordan. I'm going to reduce your profit margins. I'm going to delay your cash flow. I'm going to jeopardize your customer experience, and I'm going to make you pay for more admin work for your team to do that. So I don't have to do it. Do you think I would say yes to that business partner, Ben? Be like, yeah, come on board. You can have half of my company, 40% of my company,
40%. And I'm going to get you to work for me to be my frontline defense. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to be my customer service.
So when it just doesn't make sense to me. Ever since I've, started in dentistry, from my dental lab days to now, running Boom Cloud, insurance has never made sense.
No,
it doesn't make freaking sense. And especially dental insurance. And when we look at what they're doing to the practices, and then thinking them as a marketing partner, as some type of partner in the practice that helps you get patients, well, it's a very low quality partner, and I think it needs to be adjusted. And I think 2022 is your year to do that. If you haven't started, I know that like 99% of people that when they come talk to me and my team here at Boom Cloud, that is one of the things that they're wanting to do, is we want to reduce dependence on PPOs, because it's obvious that they're not the best partners. And again, there's a place for them. I think, Ben, for if you're starting a practice from scratch, you need to get on some PPO contracts and attract some patients and things like that. I know that's a thing out there. I don't know your thoughts on that, but I know that's what a lot of startups will do in the dental space. But I would always have a plan to start reducing and to start switching over to, a dental membership plan, renegotiating fees with those insurance companies, and just optimizing your revenue streams all around, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is optimizing your revenue so that there's more profit for the practice owner and for the team members, of that practice. So those are my final 2 cents.
No, that's spot on that last part there. Getting the dental practices to clean up the insurance company's mess. In the last 12 months, I've never seen the rate of refund requests by some insurance plans.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're sending dental practices refund requests saying, hey, such and such person wasn't insured at the time of treatment that we paid.
Wow.
So therefore, you need to pay us back. Or they're saying we overpaid you. And some practices on a weekly basis are having money taken out of their claims to pay for refund requests, in my opinion, that haven't been proven.
Wow.
So we had another client hire an attorney to investigate this.
Gosh.
And what the attorney, the forensic accountant came back and said, you're not responsible for this. You shouldn't be paying for that refund. And they shouldn't be pulling money out of other people's claims. That's robbing those employers and those employees of their benefits, right?
Yeah.
That's completely inappropriate. It's illegal.
It totally is.
So they wrote a letter to this insurance company, and the insurance company, they stopped immediately on those refund requests. So here's the sad thing.
A letter meaning a cease and desist.
Yeah. And they proved the case. They said, none of this is legitimate. Contractually, this is against tort law, which is a fancy way of saying business law. But
look at you using your fancy words.
The law firm basically came back and said, there's no case there. What you're asking the practice to pay for money that they don't owe you.
Yeah.
So they put that to bed. So here's the sad thing. A couple of years ago here in Utah, one of the Northern Utah study clubs that I was a part of, I spoke about this briefly. And the doctor, there was one doctor, his face went blue. Mm-hmm. And I knew, okay, he probably went through something like this similar. So spoke to him after the meeting. Mm-hmm. He said, just 2 days ago, I wrote a check for $54,000 and sent it to the insurance company that was asking for the refund.
Oh my goodness.
And he sent me his letter a week later, his collection letter that he got from the insurance plan. The insurance plan basically said, we've performed an audit and assessed our over the last 2 years that we've overpaid you on these patients. And they only listed like 10 patients and a dollar amount that was an overpayment. And they said, based upon this pattern, we've assessed that you owe us $54,000 over the last 5 years of overpayments. They had no other evidence other than the 10 patients that accounted for probably $600 of overpayments, but that's something to be debated, right? Was it a real overpayment or not? But they didn't provide any evidence. So this doctor wrote 54 grand, $54,000.
And that's a small business doing that.
That's a full-time income, annual income for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. And yet another reason why insurance companies are bad partners.
Yeah.
Goodness. Yeah, that stresses me out. I can't imagine doing that. I'd rather take $50,000 and spend it on my team or marketing, combination of, that's insane. And that's another reason to just start reducing now, because it's getting ridiculous out there. And I just, I think number one, Ben, I think you need to write a book on how to do this, because I think you're an amazing writer.
Oh, thanks, man. No, let's give a couple tips.
Yeah.
I know that most of this has been sort of doom and gloom, but these are realities that we all need to face, right?
Yeah.
So one tip that kind of comes to mind on how we can sort of, you're in network, and I get it. Most practices are not going to relinquish insurance contracts right away.
Yeah.
But how do you prepare? Well, number one, we need to teach our patients to value quality over price, or value quality over insurance, right? Insurance is just secondary. But the other thing, I like what Genevieve Poppy says. Whenever we treatment plan, too many times we make the mistake of telling a patient that their cleaning is free today. There's no out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
When in fact, your full office fee for that visit was $400, and the patient doesn't know that, right? We're teaching them that their cleaning is free.
Yeah. So for like Genevieve's we call her the patient whisperer. Whisperer. Yeah. I think she has got wonderful verbiage tips on this.
I think and that when I heard that from Genevieve, was like, that is an awesome solution to prepare patients, or at least help them understand that when they have insurance and you're in network with that insurance, there's a real cost to this treatment.
Yeah.
It is not free. It's $400, and your insurance company will likely pick up half of that.
Yeah.
Which is basically our agreed upon in-network amount, or filling, or a crown where, it's $1,200, but the patient's out of pocket is $300 because you're in network, right? But most of the times, the only thing that patients hear is it's $300, right? So they think that crown is $300.
Yeah.
It's not $300.
It's not.
$1,200.
Yeah.
So start with your full fees. Make sure patients know that your full fee is what the cost is of the treatment. And then you can kind of break it down there in terms of. So
you're talking about just price transparency with patients, so they know how much a crown costs. The full fee, the full UCR. I think that is one of the best things you can do. Like, hey, these are the costs of our crowns, and then they can see that if they're on a PPO plan or even a membership plan, what they're getting discounted. Because I'm not totally against discounting. I think there's a place for discounting strategies, but you want to, the key word is have a strategy, right? Strategy. Where I think PPOs, it's not a strategy. It's just like, we're letting them figure it out for us, which affects our bottom line, right? So that's kind of how I look at it.
There are some practices that are in network that treatment plan with the office fees. They don't treatment plan using the PPO fees. And the reason why is because they know that the insurance companies are going to make mistakes. They're going to underpay, right? Which means that a lot of times the practices are having to clean things up to collect more from the patient after the EOB comes back in. So a lot of practices, it's not necessarily considered overbilling when you estimate high in the beginning. But when the EOB comes back, most of the times, rather than sending a statement, you're sending a refund back to the patient, right? But you've collected enough of a buffer to make up for the difference of the downgrades, right? The posterior composites being downgraded to amalgam, to where if you only collected the PPO estimate and it was down, then the downgrade happens, you're chasing the patient down for more money. Now the patient is mad at you, right? For making what they call a mistake. Why'd you make a mistake? Why didn't you cover this? Like, well, I'm not your insurance plan. But still, that's how they view you, right? So Genevieve's idea on estimating the whole fee and then working down from there, but giving the patient that expectation, to me, is key, as well as running a little bit over on the estimate, be a little bit more aggressive on the estimate.
Sure.
Because it's better to run risk of giving the patient a refund rather than an additional statement, right?
Sure. Absolutely. What other tips you got for practices out there, Ben?
So the other, as far as insurance, just the verbiage, when we're in network, I there are several consultants that Gary Takis is one of them. When they when they do a treatment plan with the patient, insurance is sort of secondary, right?
Yeah.
It's not at the forefront of the discussion, right? And so a lot of times when they're giving patients the breakdown of treatment, insurance is the last thing that they mentioned. They said that, in terms of coverage, they said, we understand that you have this such and such insurance plan, and based upon what we know, we believe your insurance plan is going to cover, a small portion of this, and that's all they mentioned. They don't go into the nitty-gritty details with the patient on coverage. I think when we go into too much of the nitty-gritty details, like most practices do today, we're now giving the patient the expectation, or at least the idea, that we are the insurance administrator as well, right? But when we give them the basics, saying your insurance plan may cover X amount, but for today, this is what your out-of-pocket is, your total treatment plan out-of-pocket. And they keep it so simple to the extent where patients are not being taught this mentality or this expectation that, oh, if I have a question about coverage, I should come to you, right?
Yeah.
We cannot wear that hat of insurance expert. I would never wear that in a dental practice. In fact, when I was working in a group practice, we hired a former banker from Chase Bank to come and do all our treatment planning. And that was one of the tips and techniques he used, is that he didn't give any percentage expectations to the patients. It was very, very simple to the extent where he's like, based upon what we know, your insurance company may provide coverage, but this is the cost of the treatment today, and this is your estimated portion. Whatever your company may not pay, and if there's a balance, we'll let you know. But otherwise, we, based upon what we know, this is likely going to be your out-of-pocket estimate. And that, like for fillings as an example, that was a 40% estimate that he was giving the patient, sometimes 50%, where the in-network coverage was only 20% out of pocket for the patient. So we adopted this philosophy to overestimate in the beginning. And the reason why is, before we hired him, we had a 90-day accounts receivable of $300,000, 300,000 plus, 90 plus.
They were 90 days late.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was just the patient portion. And that's because the previous people that were sort of in charge of that, they just did the industry standard, right? They quoted the patient based upon what they thought was close as possible to the in-network out-of-pocket.
What they felt or thought, no data behind it, no formula or structure behind it.
And they were going off of the insurance verification, right? Which is not always solid bulletproof.
Sure.
So you estimate high, and we did that. And it was a very, very short and simple conversation with patients. And what we found is that it changed the dynamics of patients complaining about their insurance coverage to us.
Sure.
Because we didn't teach them that we were experts, right? We just kept it simple. Yeah. And it was beautiful, because when we sent those checks out, got great reviews, people loved us. They were paying exactly what they would have paid no matter who they went to in the community on an in-network basis, but they loved us because there's something about getting money back from your dental office, right? People, from anybody.
I've got some checks in the mail from like the medical office, and I'm like, oh, cool. I was not expecting that. And you cash a check, and it just feels good, right?
Even from the IRS. It's like, oh yes.
Even from the IRS. Same thing. Yeah. So my tips would be, start reducing dependence on PPOs, start a membership program, or grow your membership program. That's anyone who's listened to this podcast long enough knows that that's what I'm obsessed about, Ben. So starting and growing a membership program, we're seeing, practices reach hundreds to thousands of active membership patients, and which results in hundreds of thousands of dollars of predictable recurring revenue for the practice. Another thing that I think every practice should do, if you're preparing to cut out PPOs, is optimize your accounts receivable. Like you kind of mentioned over there, Ben. We have a tool that we've been building within BoomCloud that will help automate accounts receivable outreach and collections. which I think the average office, Ben, loses about $116,000 per year in unpaid invoices. So as you're cutting out PPOs, think of it as a revenue optimization strategy. You cut out PPOs, you go out of network, you're going to increase your profit margins. You create a membership program. You've got a loyalty tool and a recurring revenue tool and a case acceptance tool that help patients say yes to more treatment. I think the average patient on a membership plan pays 3 times more than the non-member, much like when we go to Costco, or if we're an Amazon Prime member, we spend more with those companies. It's a very, very similar psychology. So optimizing your AR, and then one of my tips, as you're cutting out PPOs and optimizing your revenue, I would look at patient financing. Because if you look at the average PPO, what is it? 40%, Ben, is the discount. A lot of the times patient financing companies will require you to take another 10 to 15% discount to do patient financing, which adds, 50 to 55% in discounts, right? The whole purpose of cutting out PPOs is to optimize your revenue and your profit margins. The same thing if you have membership programs and patients are signing up for it needing patient financing, which is definitely a good thing. But I'm all about optimizing the profit margins in the practice. So I would find a patient financing partner that doesn't force you to take what they call a merchant discount, right? That's just another layer on top of your PPO discount or even your membership discount. So when I talk about discounting strategies, that involves that type of strategies, looking at all the discounts that are happening and making sure you're in control of it. That's all it is. You're controlling the discount strategy. So those would be my tips, Ben, because, as a practice is reducing dependence on PPOs, it is a revenue optimization strategy. So we look at a lot of different components there. We can have a whole a podcast series on that, Ben, because I have like 6 or 7 things the practice should be doing to optimize revenue, including, what we've talked about today. So those are my tips.
I love it.
Awesome, dude.
That's awesome.
This has been a fun episode talking about, why PPOs are bad partners and what to do about it. So was excellent hanging out with you today. If you guys like this topic, Ben and I are speaking in August in Nashville, Tennessee. Right? Nashville, for the Principles of Practice Management. I would just go to Google right now, type in Principles of Practice Management. It's the Dental Economics Magazine conference. Ben and I are going to be speaking together. It's going to be a party, and we're going to be talking about, what's the topic, Ben? I've already forgotten.
I'm talking about the 7 steps to negotiate fees, and then you're covering membership plans.
There we go. Yeah. See, Ben organizes my life, especially when we go. We speak together.
I just guessed. I think that's what we're talking about.
I'm pretty confident that's what we're going to talk about. And if that's not what it's talking about, it's still going to be an amazing time. We'll be having Dr. Pam, who's the chief editor of Dental Economics. I'm going to be talking with her later today and record an episode with her. But we'll be speaking there. So Google Principles of Practice Management. It's the first one there. It's the Dental Economics Principles of Practice Management Conference, August 26th to the 27th of 2022. Go register, come hang out with Ben and I, and we'll have a good time talking about these details. In addition to that, if you're really thinking about cutting out the PPOs, Ben and I have done lots of courses on this. If you go to boomcloud.com, we have a resource section. We have a Fire the PPO toolkit that has both Ben and my contact information and some courses and resources that we've put together. And then go check out veritasdentalresources.com. Ben's got lots of information on his site that will help, navigate your reducing dependence of insurance journey, or even negotiating your plans with the insurance provider. So once again, boomcloud.com or veritasdentalresources.com. So Ben, thanks for hanging out today.
Hey, thanks, Jordan. And to everybody, have a great week. Wish you the best of success, no matter what you're navigating. And we will get back together again next Friday, same time.
Awesome. Rock on, everybody.
Take care, everyone.